First debuting in 1939, the caped crusader Batman immediately took the world by storm, beautifully blending action-adventure from early detective pulps with the superheroic exploits of DC's sensational Superman comics. Soon becoming one of DC's coolest and most beloved heroes, Batman has appeared in thousands of comics and has arguably been depicted in more media than any of the company's other famous creations. In this video, we'll trace the inception and creation of The Dark Knight and spotlight his impact on popular culture, tracing his evolution through comics, movies, series, and other extended media over the course of more than 80 years. In this edition of Cartoon Evolution presents Pop Culture Evolution. In 1934, National Allied Publications, the publisher which would later become DC Comics, was founded. Finding popularity with the world's first full-length comic magazines, National built a reputation of offering bite-sized, pulp-infused anthology stories. In 1937, National launched Detective Comics, presenting hard-boiled, noir-drenched crime stories featuring private eyes, vigilantes, and ruthless criminals. It was an incredibly popular title that would not only become the longest continually running comic series ever, but also the company's eventual namesake. In 1938, Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster blew the world of comic books wide open, debuting the world's first superhero, Superman, in Action Comics #1. With him, National created a whole new fantastical genre of comic book, soon making everyday pulp stories tired and outdated. With this revelation, National scrambled for more superpowered characters to introduce into their various magazines. Bob Kane, the artist and writer behind Detective Comics' Oscar the Gumshoe, took up the task of developing a superhero, devising one that could fly like Superman, but with the aid of mechanical wings. Kane essentially took the stereotypical detective hero, put him in colourful Superman-like spandex, a domino mask like that worn by pulp hero Zorro, and a yellow belt that attached a winged apparatus to his back. Kane was fascinated by Leonardo da Vinci's 15th century sketches for a flying machine that could someday allow humans to fly, with wings designed after those of a bat, and designed the character's winged apparatus after them. Concept notes call the character a bird-like man who wants to fly like a bat. For further inspiration, Kane turned to collaborator Bill Finger, who immediately suggested reworking the character's design to make him more mysterious and more ominous, such as changing the suit from bright red to dark grey, giving him a cowl instead of a domino mask, and adding gloves so that he didn't leave fingerprints. While Kane considered the names Hawkman and Birdman, Finger suggested playing up the bat element by replacing his rigid wings with a flexible cape scalloped to look like bat wings, and adding a large bat insignia across his chest. Kane said, "A bat itself is such an eerie, weird creature. I figured if a man wore this awesome, horrific bat costume, that it would scare the denizens of the underworld to death even before he ever landed a punch." Naturally, the character became the Batman. Pulling further inspiration from pulp heroes, the Scarlet Pimpernel, the Phantom, and Zorro, they developed the Batman as a masked vigilante with a secret identity, a playboy air of nobility and wealth, a public figure hiding in plain sight. Wanting a name that would blend gentry with colonialism, Finger came up with Bruce Wayne, combining Scottish patriot Robert the Bruce with American revolutionary Mad Anthony Wayne. Unlike Superman, the Batman was to be a real human being without superpowers, a super sleuth detective in the mold of literary sleuth Sherlock Holmes, and pulp heroes Doc Savage, Dick Tracy, and most notably, The Shadow. These pulp influences inspired the comic's violent, noir-like nature, with the remorseless Batman often utilizing heavy weaponry and resorting to brutal means. Other visual iconography was inspired by the 1920 film The Mark of Zorro starring Douglas Fairbanks, and the 1930 film The Bat Whispers, often considered one of the earliest film noirs, which sees a bat-like criminal terrorizing people. The pitch was immediately greenlit by National, with Kane signing a now infamous contract that gave him full creative credit. Finger's creative input remained unacknowledged officially for over 75 years. The Batman, soon simply shortened to Batman, debuted in Detective Comics number 27 in March 1939, with his first story, The Case of the Chemical Syndicate, seeing him solving a murder and going up against a criminal organization. It also introduced the character of Commissioner Gordon, who Finger added to give Batman someone to talk to. Finger additionally devised Batman's iconic ride, the Batmobile, in its most primitive form. Loaded with plenty of action and violence, Batman became an instant sensation and the marquee star of Detective Comics. Over the following issues, Kane refined the Batsuit by drawing the character's jawline more pronounced and lengthening the ears. He noted that it took a full year to form his full-figure, mature Batman. Additionally, Finger expanded Batman's world, moving away from Kane's street-level crime angle, with more and more outlandish concepts, and a continually more refined Batmobile. In Detective Comics 33, Batman's 7th story, the character's origin was finally revealed, which saw a child Bruce Wayne witnessing his parents' murder on the way home from a screening of The Mask of Zorro, thereafter devoting his life to fighting crime and protecting the innocent. Batman was so instantly popular that in only 1 year, he was starring in his own full-length headline series, though he did continue to concurrently feature in Detective Comics. In the first issue, Finger introduced two of Batman's iconic villains, the grotesque Joker, his arch-nemesis, and feisty femme fatale, Catwoman. Finger continued to expand Batman's roster of eccentric villains over following issues, slowly building the single most recognizable and beloved rogues gallery in comic history, with Finger drawing enormous inspiration from the bizarre villains in the Dick Tracy comic strips. By now, DC had become worried that the more brutal and sinister elements of the comics could be emulated by child readers, and decided to slowly soften Batman. He was given a no excessive violence credo, and his reliance on firearms and extreme weaponry was eliminated. Furthermore, in April 1940's Action Comics number 38, a young sidekick Robin was introduced, allowing a lighter, more youthful feel, with Finger believing Batman needed his own Watson to bounce off of and help him solve crimes. As a result, sales almost doubled, and a superhero sidekick craze took off in comics. Additionally, Batman's butler, Alfred Pennyworth, was introduced in April 1943's Batman number 16. With Batman's popularity quickly matching that of Superman, the two characters were paired up in their own split series, The World's Finest, beginning in March 1941. Batman and Superman, however, wouldn't star in a comic together until 1952's Superman number 76, a pairing that was so popular that World's Finest was revamped to solely include team-up stories. In 1943, Batman and Robin significantly expanded their readership when they spun off into their very first comic strip. By this time, Superman had been starring in his own radio serial for 3 years and in cartoon shorts for 2. Batman, however, beat him to the live-action punch by 5 with his very own 15-chapter Columbia film serial, which starred Lewis Wilson as the very first on-screen depiction of the character and Douglas Croft as Robin. Like all serials, Batman screened in cinemas in a movie matinee bill, with episodes given cliffhanger endings to entice audiences back for the next part. As film censorship at the time disallowed the depiction of vigilantes as heroes, Batman was made a US government secret agent, tasked with taking down Japanese secret agent Dr. Daka. Released at the height of World World War II, Batman, much like other popular characters at the time, was used as a conduit for nationalistic pseudo-propaganda entertainment. Due to its low-budget nature, the serial did away with many of the more outlandish Bat elements and saw the heroes dressed in cheap, baggy suits. The film did, however, introduce the Batcave into Batman lore and informed the now traditional depiction of Alfred. At a time when serials were flourishing, Batman was so successful that it spawned a 15-chapter sequel, 1949's Batman and Robin, which saw the dynamic duo up against the Wizard, a villain with electrical powers. Here, Batman and Robin were portrayed by Robert Lowery and Johnny Duncan, respectively, who wore somewhat modified but still tacky costumes. Superman landed his own live-action serial in 1948, which notably reused old sets, props, and musical scores from the Batmans. In the interim, from 1945, Batman and Robin, portrayed by Stacey Harris and Ronald List, respectively, made appearances on Superman's radio serial, taking over his duties while out of action or incapacitated by kryptonite, story devices used to allow Superman actor Bud Collyer vacation time. While numerous attempts were made to give Batman his own radio serial, one never eventuated until the late 1980s. In the early 1950s, superhero comics came under fire for corrupting the morals of youth, with the medium used as a scapegoat for a rise in juvenile delinquency, and Batman singled out for promoting violence. While this period saw many publishers cancel their superhero titles, Batman remained popular, joining Superman and Wonder Woman as some of the only superheroes to continue in publication. By 1953, the Comics Code Authority was implemented to help publishers self-regulate comic violence, and DC made the Batman comics lighter again, with stories taking a more fantastical tone. Additionally, the characters of Batwoman and Batgirl were soon added. In 1960, Batman joined forces with other DC mainstays to form the Justice League of America, though by the middle 60s, the superhero formula had worn thin. Close to killing Batman off, DC revamped the character, debuting a new look in 1964's Detective Comics number 327. Artist Carmine Infantino made him appear more modern, stylish, and heroic, and added the now iconic yellow ellipse behind his chest insignia. His stories also returned to noir-like detective tales, while more fantastical elements were removed. In the early 1960s, the ABC network looked to Batman for a hip and fun primetime action-adventure series. Commissioning 20th Century Fox to produce, William Dozier was placed in charge of development. Never a comic reader, Dozier felt the only way to approach Batman was as a pop art campy comedy, somewhat parodying the now tacky film serial, and thus presenting not just a fun action-adventure romp, but a kitschy, over-the-top, absurdist satire relying on cheesy gags, exaggerated action, slapstick comedy, pop iconography, and ostentatious performances. Cast as Batman was upcoming actor Adam West, and as the Boy Wonder Robin was newcomer Burt Ward. Decked out in flamboyant, skin-tight spandex batsuits, they fully embraced the comedic potential of the roles, with West saying he wanted to bring a laugh, have some fun, make people happy, branding himself the Bright Knight. Meanwhile, classic and new villains were portrayed by a roster of renowned performers and comedic actors. Premiering in January 1966, Batman was an instant hit and the biggest TV phenomenon of the mid-60s, spawning the so-called Bat craze. It made bucket loads from mass merchandising tie-ins, skyrocketed comic sales to a circulation of almost 1 million, and even boosted sales of colour TVs. West was aptly branded the billion-dollar Batman. Following the conclusion of the first season, a feature-length companion film was released theatrically, featuring much of the same cast and showcasing the regular antics and style of the series. 1966's Batman thus became the hero's first feature-length film. However, the series soon lost momentum. Growing more excessive and surreal as it drew on, audiences grew tired of the gimmicky camp aesthetics, with comics having even shifted to a more camp narrative style and artistic design to capitalize on the series' success. Sales began to fall just as sharply as they rose. In general, the character now just seemed lame and outdated. In Season 3, producers introduced a brand new Batgirl, alias Barbara Gordon, to win back audiences audiences with a female lead. Yvonne Craig was cast in the role, portraying the first ever leading superheroine on a TV series. To help familiarise the audiences with the character and further develop her, Gordon was also introduced in print in 1966, soon becoming the most iconic version of Batgirl. Regardless, ratings continued to fall, and the series was cancelled after 3 seasons, 120 episodes, and a theatrical film. While comic artists struggled to bring the character back to his former glory in the aftermath of the series, the character did see success with younger audiences in television animation. Firstly, Filmation produced The Adventures of Batman for CBS in 1968, a series of short cartoons which were dispersed between Superman and Superboy cartoons to make up the Batman-Superman Hour Saturday morning block. While DC was taking a darker turn in the comics, Filmation continued with the wacky, hyper-stylized iteration. Here, Batman and Robin were voiced by Olin Sewell and Casey Kasem respectively. Produced in Filmation's crude, economic limited animation style, a total of 34 12-minute cartoons were created. In 1969, the cartoons were re-aired in their own hour-long block, Batman with Robin the Boy Wonder, with each of the 17 episodes presenting 2 cartoons. Additionally, in 1970, Filmation produced 4 30 to 60 second shorts for the new PBS preschool series Sesame Street, with one appearing in its very first test pilot. These shorts were designed to educate children on such topics as crossing the street and cleaning up. In 1972, Hanna-Barbera featured the duo in 2 episodes of The New Scooby-Doo Movies, a series which saw Scoob and the gang solving crimes alongside popular characters and celebrities. Here they teamed up with Batman and Robin to solve a pair of crimes committed by Joker and Penguin. Produced in a similar, limited style, the characters barely differed from Filmation's and were once again voiced by Sewell and Kasem. In 1973, Hanna-Barbera debuted Super Friends, a series based on the Justice League comics which starred Batman and Robin alongside Superman, Wonder Woman, and Aquaman. While still utilising limited animation, the characters now took on a slightly buffer, more comic-accurate depiction. It lasted 1 season before being cancelled due to low ratings. However, in the mid-70s, the success of such shows as ABC's live-action Wonder Woman renewed interest in superhero TV, leading Filmation to produce The New Adventures of Batman for CBS. Once again, utilising limited animation, the series depicted the characters in their previous form, and for the first time returned both West and Ward to their roles. Additional characters were also added to the hero roster, including Batgirl and Batmite. The series ran for 1 season of 16 episodes, though later ran in repeats until 1981 within various package series. With the newfound success of superhero TV, Hanna-Barbera threw Super Friends back into production in 1977. Now titled The All-New Super Friends Hour, the series premiered to much higher ratings than before. Various iterations of Super Friends aired until 1986, with the character roster and series title altering regularly. For the first 5 seasons, Sewell continued as Batman, while West took on the role for the final 2. Kasem voiced Robin for the entire series, which ran for 93 episodes across 13 years. With Super Friends and New Adventures running concurrently, this is a very rare example of 2 studios producing series based on the same characters simultaneously. Though Batman had seen much success on children's television, comic artists continually struggled making him popular again in print. Dennis O'Neil and Neil Adams attempted to bring Batman back to being the Grim Avenger of the Night in an influential late 60s, early 70s run. Though it wasn't until Frank Miller's 1986 4-part limited series, The Dark Knight Returns, that widespread interest in the character sparked again. Miller re-envisioned Batman and his world as dark, gritty, violent, dystopian, and noir-drenched, with an aging Batman returning to duty following the emergence of a disturbing new threat. Now considered one of the most influential stories in Batman's history and one of the greatest comic stories ever, the series not only informed the modern template for the character, but inspired a darker direction for superheroes in general. Dark Knight Returns was quickly followed by 1987's Batman Year One, a 4-issue arc written by Miller and illustrated by David Mazzucchelli, which conversely recounted his first year as a crime fighter, and 1988's one-shot The Killing Joke, one of the most sadistic chapters in Gotham lore. Batman was now on his way to eclipsing Superman as the coolest and most popular superhero in DC's arsenal. Having been developing a Batman movie since the 1980s, Warner Brothers, the studio behind the Superman franchise, were now motivated to fast-track production. Following the success of 1985's Pee-wee's Big Adventure, and due to his darkly fantastical artistry, Tim Burton was hired as director. After considering Kevin Costner, Mel Gibson, Harrison Ford, Dennis Quaid, Tom Selleck, and Bill Murray, Michael Keaton, who Burton had directed in Beetlejuice, was cast in the role, with producers finding him to have an edgy, tormented quality. Keaton's casting and Burton's hiring was initially met with backlash, with fans frightened that with a comedic actor and a whimsical director, the studio was planning another campy Batman. In fact, it said that over 50,000 letters were sent to Warner's in protest. On the contrary, they were planning a darkly twisted Batman flick, which Burton noted would depict a complete duel of the freaks, casting celebrated actor Jack Nicholson as the manic Joker. In turn, production designer Anton Furst crafted Gotham City as the ugliest and bleakest metropolis imaginable. Going against standard, Burton decided against creating the Batsuit out of spandex, believing it was not intimidating, instead opting for an all-black sculpted latex design to give the appearance of a bigger-than-life creature. When Batman released in June of 1989, it smashed numerous box office records and garnered wide audience acclaim. Keaton, of course, was lauded for his performance and Burton for his direction. Due to the success, Warner's immediately greenlit a sequel, 1992's Batman Returns. For the sequel, Burton once again directed and Keaton reprised the role. With an even grungier and edgier style, Danny DeVito was cast as the grotesque Penguin and Michelle Pfeiffer as the seductively feisty Catwoman. While the film was considered successful, earning the highest opening weekend of all time at the time, it earned $150 million less than its predecessor. Seemingly, the desire to push into more mature and violent territory may have gone a little too far. Critics scorned the film for being inappropriate for children and were perplexed by its lenient PG-13 classification. Amongst intense consumer and activist pressure, McDonald's even withdrew their Happy Meal promotional tie-in. Though disappointed by the movie's takings, Warner Brothers greenlit a third film, 1995's Batman Forever. Concerned by the backlash, they aimed to make it lighter, funnier, and, in their words, for the MTV generation and full of merchandising appeal. As a result, Warner's let Burton go and hired Joel Schumacher. Soon after, Keaton dropped out and a new Batman search was underway. Tom Hanks, Johnny Depp, Kurt Russell, Keanu Reeves, and Daniel Day-Lewis were all considered. However, Val Kilmer was given the role following his performance in 1993's Tombstone. The film also introduced Robin, with Leonardo DiCaprio, Mark Wahlberg, Matt Damon, Ewan McGregor, Jude Law, and even Christian Bale considered. Chris O'Donnell was eventually cast. Crafting a brighter and more vibrant film, Schumacher drew heavily on the vivacious gold and silver age comic art of Dick Sprang, as well as the energetic nature of the 60s series, though without much of its camp. In effort to make the film cooler and edgier, suits were given a contemporary, high-tech upgrade, and zany villains, the Riddler, portrayed by Jim Carrey, and Two-Face, played by Tommy Lee Jones, were chosen. On release, the movie received mixed reception, though many disparaged its lighter tone and the decision to add bat nipples. Most agreed it was decent popcorn entertainment. Forever was financially successful, making $70 million more than Returns, and again breaking the opening weekend record. Naturally, a fourth film was greenlit, though due to an insanely fast turnaround, Kilmer was forced out of the role, with the upcoming star of ER, George Clooney, quickly chosen to take his place. 1997's Batman and Robin was made even lighter, brighter, flashier, and more heroic, this time fully leaning into the 60s camp, with tongue-in-cheek dialogue, tacky sequences, and flamboyant costumes. The film also styled itself in the mold of cheesy 80s action flicks, the result of action hero Arnold Schwarzenegger being cast as the wacky Mr. Freeze. Additionally, the film utilized Poison Ivy, portrayed by Uma Thurman, and introduced Batgirl, played by Alicia Silverstone. Upon release, the movie took in the lowest box office receipts of the entire franchise and was universally panned for its frantic and silly nature. To this day, it's considered by many as one of the worst superhero movies of all time. As a result, Warner's pulled the pin on a proposed fifth feature, Batman Unchained. The initial success of the franchise, however, did lead to a new animation boom from DC. After a brief cameo appearance in a 1990 episode of Tiny Toon Adventures, Warner Bros. Animation set their sights on a brand new animated series starring The Dark Knight, 1992's Batman, the animated series. Produced by Bruce Timm and Paul Dini, the series drew huge inspiration from the Burton films, particularly in their tone, style, and visual design, even initially using Danny Elfman's theme song in the opening sequence. The series also took on a film noir style, additionally drawing on the original Fleischer Studio Superman cartoons of the 1940s. While aimed at children, the series was dark and mature, earning a large adult audience and helping shift the demographic for superhero cartoons. It's notably the first Batman cartoon to be produced in a smoother, more cinematic animation. The series introduced Kevin Conroy as Batman and additionally featured Mark Hamill in an iconic portrayal of the Joker. While putting focus on Batman's well-known rogues gallery, the show saw the creation of Harley Quinn. Returning for a second season, the series was broadcast under the new title The Adventures of Batman and Robin. Highly praised on release, winning 4 Emmys across its 2-season, 85-episode run, it is still considered one of the greatest and most influential cartoons in history. Animated series also spawned a number of feature-length film spin-offs, including 1993's Batman Mask of the Phantasm, DC's first theatrically released animated feature, hailed as one of the greatest Batman movies ever, 1998's Batman and Mr. Freeze Sub-Zero, 2003's Mystery of the Batwoman, and 2017's Batman and Harley Quinn. As an aside, Batman and Robin from the series made a brief cameo appearance in a 1993 episode of Animaniacs, while a 1997 episode saw Adam West reprising the role. The success of animated series led to the creation of a fully fledged DC animated universe, expanding with Superman the Animated Series in 1996, which took a lighter style and tone. In 1997, the new Batman Adventures launched as a 24-episode continuation of the original animated series, commonly considered its third season. This series, while maintaining much of the noir and Burton influence, was much brighter and child-friendly, keeping in tone with Superman. Batman's suit even saw a slight redesign, removing all of the yellow elements. In the 1997 3-part Superman episode World's Finest, later reissued as a straight-to-video feature, the two series crossed over, with the two heroes teaming up. Batman made an additional 2 appearances throughout Superman's 4-year run. In 1999, the animated series was continued once again with Batman Beyond, a futuristic adventure set in the year 2039, drawing more heavily on sci-fi and cyberpunk. The series saw an elderly Bruce Wayne, voiced again by Conroy, training the Batman of the future, Terry McGinnis. Running for 3 seasons and 52 episodes, the series was likewise a relative hit, additionally spawning straight-to-home video movie The Return of the Joker. Around this time, Batman also made various appearances in 2000 to 2004's Static Shock and 2001 to 2002's The Zeta Project. In 2001, a Justice League series was also launched, which crossed over the Batman and Superman series and teamed the heroes up with other members of the Super Team. The series ran for 52 episodes across 2 seasons and was later continued in follow-up series Justice League Unlimited in 2004, which saw the league's roster expanded. Unlimited ran for a further 39 episodes across 3 seasons until 2006, while a Superman-Batman series was considered. considered, Unlimited ultimately marked the final series in the DC animated universe. In 2003, Warner Bros. Hired Christopher Nolan to helm Batman Begins, an origin story franchise reboot. Taking on a darker, more genuine approach, Nolan focused on humanity and realism, setting the movie within a grounded reality, which inspired a more mobile and tactical Batsuit, accessories, and vehicles. Taking huge inspiration from Miller's Year One and Denny O'Neil and Dick Giordano's The Man Who Falls, the film charted a brooding Bruce Wayne's spiritual journey towards becoming the Dark Knight, seeing him up against believable villains, the Scarecrow, portrayed by Cillian Murphy, and Ra's al Ghul, portrayed by Liam Neeson. For Batman, Jake Gyllenhaal, Billy Crudup, Joshua Jackson, and even Henry Cavill were considered, with Christian Bale ultimately donning the cowl. Upon release in 2005, the movie was an acclaimed success, pulling in over $370 million. Of course, a sequel was greenlit immediately, 2008's The Dark Knight. Wanting to make things worse in the world of Gotham, Nolan crafted an even bleaker, gloomier film, which saw Batman in a cat-and-mouse battle against the terrifying and enigmatic Joker, portrayed in an Academy Award-winning performance by the late Heath Ledger, and the chilling Two-Face played by Aaron Eckhart. Nolan cited Michael Mann's 1995 film Heat and Fritz Lang's 1933 film The Testament of Dr. Mabuse as heavy stylistic inspirations, while drawing from the Joker's first two comic appearances for the narrative. Additionally, Batman's suit was given an even more mobile, sophisticated, and overall improved design. Again, The Dark Knight absolutely smashed box office records, making over $1 billion at the box office, the fourth highest grossing movie of all time at the time, and was acclaimed universally. It's still considered one of the greatest comic book movies in history, with some critics noting that it legitimized the genre and paved the way for the superhero boom over the following decades. Naturally, a third film followed, 2012's The Dark Knight Rises, rounding out what is considered one of cinema's greatest trilogies. Here, Nolan pitted Batman against the menacing Bane, portrayed by Tom Hardy, teamed him up with Anne Hathaway's stealthy Catwoman, and introduced a future Robin, played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt. While reception was more mixed this time round, it still earned close to $1.1 billion at the box office. Debuting in 2007 was a new DC animated universe of feature-length, straight-to-home media movies geared towards adult audiences and mostly produced in limited digital animation. The series currently encompasses close to 50 features and over 10 shorts, most of which are standalone adventures based on comic arcs. Batman first appeared in 2008's Justice League New Frontier, a 1950s set Justice League origin story, before starring in his first headliner later that year, Batman Gotham Knight, produced in a Japanese anime style and set within the continuity of Nolan's films. Currently, Batman has appeared in 32 movies. Notable entries include the two Superman Batman adventures, 2009's Public Enemies, and 2010's Apocalypse, 2010's Under the Red Hood, 2011's Batman Year One, 2012's two-part Dark Knight Returns, 2016's controversial The Killing Joke, 2018's Gotham by Gaslight, which re-envisioned Gotham City in Victorian-era London, and 2021's two-part The Long Halloween. Across these, Batman is seen in different variations of style, design, and personality, with numerous voice actors taking the role, including Kevin Conroy, Jason O'Mara, Bruce Greenwood, Roger Craig Smith, Jensen Ackles, Michael C. Hall, Benjamin McKenzie, Peter Weller, William Baldwin, Jeremy Sisto, David Giuntoli, and Anson Mount. Outside of the DC animated movie universe, Batman also appeared in 2010's DC Super Friends movie based on the Mattel Fisher-Price toy line, the bizarre 2017 Japanese DC Superheroes vs. Eagle Talon crossover, where he was voiced by Takayuki Yamada, 2016's Return of the Caped Crusaders, and its 2017 sequel, Batman vs. Two-Face, a pair of 60s series spin-offs returning West and Ward to their roles, 2018's Japanese CG animated Batman Ninja, where he was voiced by Roger Craig Smith and Koichi Yamadera, and the 2018 Batman vs. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, a standalone movie based on the limited comic series where he was voiced by Troy Baker. In Lego form, he has also appeared, voiced by Will Arnett, in 2014's The Lego Movie, 2019's The Lego Movie 2, and 2018's spin-off The Lego Batman Movie, as well as in 9 Lego DC Superheroes direct-to-video films, voiced again by Baker. Likewise, Batman's life in animated television has never relented, with a long run of animated series continuing his legacy. Between 2004 and 2008 was The Batman, which ran for 5 seasons and 65 episodes and saw Rino Romano take up the role. It was produced in a more vibrant, cartoony style, making enormous use of stylized, angular designs. The series teamed up Batman, Robin, and Batgirl in episodes based on previous comic and animated series arcs. While one of the more forgotten series now, it was well received, winning 6 Emmy Awards and spawning the 2005 film The Batman vs. Dracula. Between 2008 and 2011 was Batman the Brave and the Bold, which ran for 3 seasons and 65 episodes, and saw Diedrich Bader take up the role. Taking a zanier, more comedic approach with simplistic and colourful animation, this kid-friendly series, much like its comic namesake, saw Batman teaming up with different, often obscure heroes to go up against his roster of villains. It later spawned wacky team-up film Scooby-Doo and Batman Brave and the Bold, seeing Batman once again assisting Mystery Inc. on an adventure. Batman, in a different form, voiced again by Conroy, joined Mystery Inc. one more time in 2019's episode of Scooby-Doo and Guess Who. Following Brave and the Bold, Batman starred in 2013's Beware the Batman, which charted the hero's earliest years in the Cape and starred Anthony Ruiviva in the role. This was the first Batman series to be produced in fully CG animation, clearly on a low budget with simplistic designs. Likely due to poor reception, it was swiftly cancelled after only 26 episodes. Batman also regularly appeared in a number of team-up series during this time. Firstly, Young Justice, which originally aired between 2010 and 2013 for 2 seasons of 46 episodes, before being rebooted in 2019 for a further 2 seasons and 52 episodes, where Batman, voiced by Greenwood, was crucial in forming the Young Justice League as the mentor of Robin and Batgirl. Then, in 2016's short-lived 52-episode series Justice League Action, a modern Justice League revival featuring stylized animation and Conroy in the role. Batman has also seen a number of recurring roles in shows such as 2013's ongoing Teen Titans Go, in a series of mostly voiceless cameos, as well as in its 2018 spin-off film Teen Titans Go to the Movies, voiced by Jimmy Kimmel. 2019's DC Superhero Girls, featuring a female-led teenage super team including Batgirl, and in 2019's ongoing Harley Quinn adult animated series, which features Bader portraying yet another comedic version of the character. Additionally, Batman has appeared in a number of animated web series, including 2013's DC Super Pets, co-starring Bader as Ace the Bat-Hound, the ongoing DC Super Friends, which has been produced in both 2D and 3D animation over time, based on the Mattel Fisher-Price toy line, and the 1970s-80s TV series, where he's voiced by Darren Norris, and 2015 to 2016's Batman Unlimited, likewise based on a Mattel toy line, which also spawned a series of 3 direct-to-video features. Between 2009 and 2015, Batman also appeared in the widely acclaimed Arkham series of action-adventure video games. Having sold over 30 million collective copies, the series revitalized the superhero video game and is considered one of the greatest multimedia adaptations of Batman. In many of the games, Conroy returned to voice the role. A number of recent live-action TV series have also featured Batman, most notably the 2014 to 2019 series Gotham, which focused on a young Bruce Wayne, portrayed by David Mazouz, in his formative years, while also charting the rise of Gotham's most infamous criminals. Running for 5 seasons and a total of 100 episodes, the last episode, set 10 years in the future, finally saw Wayne as the Batman. Wayne also appeared in numerous cameos in 2018's Titans, portrayed by Ian Glenn, while Batman appeared in an early dream sequence, and in 2019's Batwoman, portrayed by Warren Christie. In Batwoman's Crisis on Infinite Earths episode, Kevin Conroy appeared as an alt-universe Batman, portraying the character in live action for the first time. Batman also briefly appeared in an episode of the ill-fated 2002 series Birds of Prey, portrayed by Bruce Thomas in an uncredited performance. Following the success of Nolan's Dark Knight films, Warner Bros. Attempted to expand the universe with the introduction of a more grounded Superman in Zack Snyder's Man of Steel. Despite opening to mixed critical reception, it was a box office hit, and sequel plans got rolling. However, with Nolan ultimately vetoing the idea of a shared universe, Warner and Snyder instead used the film as a launchpad for a new cinematic universe of epic proportions. Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice followed. The film introduced a brand new Batman, now portrayed by Ben Affleck, the first actor approached for the part. This time, Batman was depicted as an older, bulkier, more tormented ex-crime fighter forced back into the suit after Superman causes havoc on Earth. Inspired by Miller's adaptation and drawing from the most primitive, violent, noir-drenched Batman, the iteration caused controversy for depicting Batman as a weapon-wielding killer. At first taking on Superman mono-y-mono, the two heroes eventually team up alongside Wonder Woman, marking the first time the DC Trinity appeared together in live action. Despite a hugely controversial and divided response from audience and critics, BVS took in close to $900 million at the box office and solidified the DC Extended Universe. Later that year, Batman made his second appearance in the DCEU during flashback sequences in Suicide Squad. After years of attempts to get a Justice League film off the ground, including George Miller's ill-fated Justice League Mortal in 2008, which would have seen Armie Hammer in the cowl, the DCEU's Justice League released in 2017. Despite Snyder's grand plan for a Justice League trilogy, during post-production he left the project following the death of his daughter, and Warner's brought in Joss Whedon, who'd successfully led Marvel's The Avengers to $1.5 billion at the box office to finish the job. However, with BVS's largely negative reception giving Warner's cold feet, they gave Whedon $25 million and 3 months to extensively reshoot and drastically reshape the film, throwing out an estimated 90% of the footage and giving it a brighter tone. The movie landed with a gigantic thud, both critically and commercially, losing the studio $60 million. Sequel plans were cancelled and the future of the DCEU thrown in jeopardy. Thanks, however, to a large internet fan campaign, Warner's agreed to fund Snyder $70 million to complete his version of the film, with the 4-hour epic Zack Snyder's Justice League landing on HBO Max and in theaters in March 2021. Batman was also heavily referenced in 2020's Harley Quinn flick Birds of Prey, in which Quinn names her pet hyena Bruce after that hunky Wayne guy. Following Warner's decision to rethink their superhero strategy, Affleck decided to step down from the role, as the studio sidelined a solo origin film deep into pre-production, which he was set to star in and direct. He will, however, portray the character one final time in 2023's multiversal adventure, The Flash, which is also set to see Michael Keaton return to the role for the first time in over 30 years. Keaton will also reprise the role in 2022's HBO Max tally movie Batgirl, which will star Leslie Grace in the title role. Warner's, however, didn't drop plans for that new solo Batman film, putting it in the hands of director Matt Reeves. Wanting to give the story his own personal spin, Reeves chose against setting it within the fledgling DCEU, instead rebooting The Dark Knight with a brand new standalone film set within its own continuity. With Warner's heavily pushing its multiversal direction, they agreed. After all, in 2019, they released Joker, an alt take on the villain's origin in which a young Bruce Wayne even made a brief cameo, portrayed by Dante Pereira Olsen. Reeves's The Batman, set during the second year of Batman's career, drew heavily on Year 1, Year 2, and The Long Halloween, seeing the broken and driven hero learning the ropes of vigilantism as he hunts down a serial killer. Drawing heavy inspiration from the early comics, which depicted Batman as the world's greatest detective, the Batman takes the form of a neo-noir crime thriller, blending elements of detective detective, action, horror, and psychological thriller genres. With Nicholas Hoult, Aaron Taylor-Johnson, and Armie Hammer all considered for the role, it went to Robert Pattinson. Heavily rooted in the real world, the film gives a grimmer, less fantasized, and frighteningly realistic take on the hero, his city, and its villains, pitting him against Paul Dano's chilling Riddler, Colin Farrell's Penguin, and teaming him up with Zoe Kravitz's Catwoman. In the film, Batman's suit takes on a more homemade, practical, and flexible design, made to look as if he made it from spare parts. Delayed a number of times due to the 2020's pandemic, the film finally released in March 2022 to overwhelmingly positive reviews. Intended as the first in a new trilogy, Warners have also announced a number of shared universe spin-off TV series. Aside from these proposed spin-offs and the continuation of the DCEU, Batman is next set to appear in 2022's DC League of Super Pets animated film, where he'll star alongside his canine pal Ace. Finally set to portray Batman is Keanu Reeves, while Ace will be voiced by Kevin Hart. Additionally, Batman Caped Crusader, a revival of Batman the Animated Series, is also in the works. With the original cast and creatives on board, alongside Reeves and J.J. Abrams, it's set to premiere on HBO Max and Cartoon Network in 2023. Over the years, Batman has continued as one of the most famous and recognisable fictional characters ever. With no sign of stopping, citizens of the world can always count on the Dark Knight being around. And at that, I am throwing it over to you. I want to know, what is your favourite Batman film or series, and who is your favourite Batman performer? Fire away down in the comments below and let me know your thoughts. Hey everyone, if you haven't yet, smash that big old subscribe button up on your screen to keep up to date with all my content, and hit that like button down below. Also, don't forget to check me out on social media, and please consider supporting me over on Patreon for as little as $1 a month for exclusive videos, early access content, and to get your name up on the screen. Thanks again for watching.